Welcome back, everybody, to What's Your Story? I am your host, Leilani Langdon. Now, listen, if this is your first time tuning in, you're probably wondering, like, who is she? I am a licensed clinical therapist and a story coach, and I am passionate about helping people find their purpose by exploring their story. And this space is a space where we get to journey along with others through their story so that you can be inspired to know, own, and share your story. And so I'm so excited that you've joined me today. Listen, guys, I missed you so much last week. If you are part of the What's Your Story community, I know you felt it. It was so strange not to be together. And so if you are part of our community, you know what to do. Jump in the chat. Let me know you're here. Show your love. And if this is your first time tuning in, let me know where you're watching from. I would love to shout you out. Yes, the track for the new counter is such a vibe. Yes, thank you. Listen, I wanted to try a countdown and I'm just trying new things, and this is an opportunity to do that. So thanks for that love. Jack, you're in the house. I see you, girl. Love you. Zakia, hey, girl. Listen, I just want to remind you that our community is a judgment-free zone. This is a space for us to love on one another, encourage, inspire, affirm, and this community is so supportive, and I missed it so much last week. It felt so weird not having What's Your Story. Hey, Crystal, Evie, how you doing, girl? Hola. Marcy, so glad that you're here with us tonight. Again, just want to remind you, as you're coming in, let me know you're here and show that support. A couple of things. We're just going to go ahead and jump right in. I have some announcements for you guys. So let's get ready. As you guys know, we are on our 12th episode of What's Your Story? And if you have been journeying with me from the beginning, you probably don't know this. But when I first started, God told me to start this project, and I told him I would, but that I would only do about 6 episodes because I was scared. I'll be honest. I didn't know what I was doing. But he asked me to do it. And as soon as I was getting close to that 6th episode, God was like, girl, you need to keep going. So here we are, 12 episodes in. And I want you to know that we are going to be wrapping up season 1 of What's Your Story on March 30th. Now, why do I say wrapping up season 1? I'm saying season 1 because there will be a season 2. There will be a season 2, and you have to tune in to get more information on times and dates for the start of season 2. But I want you to know that the end of season 1 will be March 30th. So, make sure that you're here and you're connected to see the exciting season finale episode of What's Your Story? Yes, May. Thank you, Evie. Girl, listen, this third baby and baby brain is on another level. So yes, May 30th. I'm living in March. Marisol, welcome to the community. First time. We love you and we thank you for being here. Pam, so good to see you. Yes, it is May 30th, the end of What's Your Story season 1, but there will be a season 2. So I'm excited for that. The other thing I wanted to share with you guys is that I've been getting some questions about how to support the show. And so here we go. I wanted to share some things that you can do to support What's Your Story. So first and foremost, you can donate. Now, listen, one of the things I've learned about this process is that it takes a level of time, commitment, and energy to put together these shows on a week-to-week basis. But it also takes some financial commitment. And most of you guys know that God called me out of my job. So I'm currently without a job, but I'm leaning in completely to this project. So if you want to donate financially, you can go ahead and do that through Cash App at What's Your Story Live. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel, Leilani Langdon, which is where we have, you can also watch What's Your Story. And listen, we have 82 subscribers and I'm super excited because I'm like, if we get to 100 subscribers, I think I'm going to do a giveaway because it's just amazing how God has been just pouring in affirmation and confirmation that this is what we're supposed to be doing. And the last thing you can do to support is to share on social media. Let people know that this platform exists and that they can be inspired to know, own, and share their story. So those are some ways that you as part of our community can continue to support this platform. Now, as I was talking about my story, some of you know exactly what I've been through. You know that God, I had my baby, and during my maternity leave, he said, Leilani, I need you to make some space for me. And as a result of that space, What's Your Story was birthed. And shortly after that, he was like, okay, girl, I need you to go into the deep and trust in me. And I need you to leave your job and completely depend on me for everything, provision, for sustenance, for your health, for your life, all of it. And it's amazing because one of the hardest things I've been dealing with in the last 2 or 3 weeks has been transitioning out of work. Now, I didn't expect that it would feel this way, but I remember a couple years ago, Adrian put me up in a hotel for my birthday, and I was like, let me go to Target. I went to Target to get some things. I had no babies, no responsibilities. I was by myself, and I was out of breath. Okay, I'm huffing and puffing through Target, and I stopped, and I was like, why am I out of breath? And I realized that I was literally running through Target, nowhere to go, no one with me, no pressure, no responsibilities, but my internal pace was rushed. I was rushed. And so this transition from leaving my job has been similar. I've been sitting in stillness, but feeling rushed. And so my husband led me to this book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, and it has been so good for my soul. It has been so good for me to learn to slow myself down. And our Did You Know moment comes from that book. The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry says this: did you know that the average iPhone user touches their phone 2,617 times a day? Listen, 2,617 times a day, the average iPhone touches their phone. Now, the research actually shows that this is a low average, okay? But a high user, people who use their phone a lot, okay, can touch their phones up to 5,000 times a day. Now, if I were to tell you, hey, get your phone, set a timer for 43 minutes, okay, and tap your phone straight continuously for the 43 minutes, you would look at me and you'd be like, that's crazy. I'm too busy for that. I don't have enough time. That's insane. That's a waste of my time. Well, guess what? You're already doing it. It's already happening. Now, can you imagine the amount of us that have said, we want to get fit. You want to get that summer body ready, right? Imagine what would your life look like if every day you did 2,617 push-ups or sit-ups or pull-ups? What about those of us who've been wanting to learn a skill, right? Or you've been wanting to learn a new language? What would happen if you took 2,617 you read 2,617 words a day? How much more would you know? What about those of you who've been saying, I need to spend more time with my family. I need to spend more time with my spouse. What if you set aside 2,617 seconds a day to just be present in the moment? What would that look like? And more importantly, what would it be like if we let Jesus touch us 2,617 times a day? How much richer and meaningful would our lives be? Listen, a lot of us lack clarity. A lot of us lack understanding, meaning, peace, hope, love. But that's because we've lied to ourselves. We believe that we don't have time to sit down, that we don't have time to stop, to process, to laugh, to talk. And I'm telling you that you can at least find 2,617 seconds in the day to actually surrender, to actually be present. And so let's stop exchanging living for just surviving. We want to thrive. And so this week, I want to challenge you to choose wisely, to live wisely, and to spend those 2,617 seconds touches on something that will actually bring meaning to your life. With that being said, listen, I need you to get your emojis ready, your hand clap emojis ready to welcome our guest for tonight, who is courageously going to be sharing her story. And so I'm going to bring her on right now, and I want you guys in the chat to show some love. Elizabeth, how are you?
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I am so happy you're here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am an overcomer. First, let me start off with that. I'm the daughter of the
Hey.
Most High. I am an overcomer, and I'm about to be a graduate with my bachelor's degree
Whoop
next
whoop.
Monday. So I'm excited.
Hey, we got to throw up some party emojis up in the
Yes,
house.
yes.
That is so exciting. Congratulations. And I
Thank
can't
you.
wait to see those pictures of you throwing your hat in the air and just praising God
Yes,
for allowing you to overcome. So,
overcome.
Elizabeth, tell us, what's your story, girl?
Okay, so let me just put it out there and let everybody know that from the very beginning, the enemy's been trying to take me out because he already
Mm,
knew like what calling I have over my life and what God wanted to do with my life, right? And so he's
yeah.
been since birth, he's been trying to take me out, and that's because
Wow.
there was this generational cycle that was over my family for so many years,
Hmm.
and so and I decided to no longer let that cycle continue with me. It
Mm.
stopped with me, and it's not going to get to my son
Hey.
or my grandkids or my great grandkids. It's
Yes.
stopping with me, and so basically, my abuse started when I was 4 years old.
Hmm.
So I was left with my grandmother, and my grandmother was an evil woman. And so the reason why I
Hmm.
say that is because but I understand that she was only doing what she knew how to do, right? Like
Yeah.
she didn't know how to love, she didn't know how to be a grandmother, she didn't have any of those tools because she was only repeating what was done to her. And so, like I said,
Hmm.
she was detached. She was an
Yeah.
evil woman to me. And so, and I'm not taking it personal because I think she hated girls, so it was nothing personal to me directly.
Sure.
It was more like I was a girl, so therefore she was mean to me.
Hmm.
And so when I was at my grandmother's house, my uncles were gang members and they would bring their friends over. So there was parties day and night at my grandmother's house.
Hmm.
And so I remember hiding inside of a closet, and that was my way of getting away from all of that. That was my coping skill, right?
Hmm.
Because I didn't feel
Yeah.
protected, I didn't feel safe. And so
Right.
my dad and my mom split up when I want to say around 4 years old. They split up, so my mom left me there and she took off.
Hmm.
And from that point on, my dad wasn't in my life. Like I needed that father figure.
Yeah.
And so when I used to get my grandmother upset, or if I did anything to get on her nerves, get her upset, or if she wanted to like amuse the men that were in the house, because like I said, they were gang members, so they were partying day and night, right?
Sure.
They have history of incarceration, drugs. They were there was girls, there was human trafficking involved in my family as well. And so before I even knew what that was, and
Yeah.
so basically when I was there, my grandma would do like she would, and whenever I made her upset, she would have me get naked and she'll whip me from head to toe with the
Hmm.
stick. She'll grab a stick and she'll
Wow.
hit me with the stick, and so or she'll have a leather belt and she'll hit me with the leather belt, and
Hmm.
so like I said, I was very afraid, and I was hiding a lot in the closet, and
Hmm.
there was no other way for me to get around all of that.
Sure.
And so eventually, I ended up getting with my mother, and that's where the physical abuse started with her. And so
Hmm.
she just continued the physical abuse, and my mom would do the same thing. She would get a leather belt and she would hit me from head to toe, leaving welts all over my
Hmm.
body and bruises all over my body. And
Wow.
my mom was angry as well, and because it was the same abuse was done to her,
Yeah,
so it was
sure.
a generational pattern.
Cycle.
And yes, and so basically I was a cutter, and so that was a way for me to get away from all the pain, right? For me to cut my arms, put a
Hmm.
belt around
Yeah.
my neck, stiff nail polish, because I felt like if I disappeared, if I got away from all of that, that somebody would miss me. Somebody would be like, where's Elizabeth? We miss her, we love her.
Hmm.
I just wanted
Yeah.
that attention, that love. I feel like
Yeah.
all that's all children want is to be loved and
Yes.
nurtured, right? But I didn't have that, and so
Yes.
that's what I was doing to get that attention. And then
Yeah.
I developed a mindset growing up thinking that any attention was good attention. If it was bad or good, it was still attention. And so
Wow.
I took that into my adulthood.
Hmm.
And so there was times where, my mom would have me get in the bathtub, and I would get out of the bathtub naked with water dripping on me, and she would whip me from head to toe, which was
Hmm.
was a tactic for her. And being soaking with water all over me and the leather belt, it hurts 10 times worse. I feel, right?
Yes.
And so I was always in so much fear. I was always
Hmm.
low self esteem, didn't know my worth. Education wasn't a priority in my house. I would
Hmm.
go to school and get beat up at school too because I was coming from low income housing. Like I was coming from
Wow.
poverty, so I had mismatched clothes. holes in my pants, like my teeth were messed up, my hair wasn't did. So I would go to school and get beat up as well. So having to endure that pain at school and then go home and endure the same pain,
No relief.
I had no relief, right? I had no
Yeah,
outlet.
yeah.
I was coming from a family where everything was hush hush, you don't talk about it, and nobody at my school asked me questions anyways. And so like I had all the red flags, and nobody said or asked me what's going on at home.
Wow.
And so um, eventually, when I was 14 years old, I met an older man, and he ended up raping me in the backseat of the car. And his friend was driving the car. And like I said, I thought this was okay because it was attention, right? I didn't even
Yeah.
know it was bad attention. Like nobody told me about good touches, bad touches, or rape or
Sure.
consent. I didn't know any of that. And so when this man was doing that to me, I felt like, well, I like him, so it must be okay.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so eventually, another situation where I met my mom. I mean, I was with my mom, and I came from a river. I went to the river, got a tan, came home, and me and her got into a huge fight, and she poured chemicals all over my body and my mouth. And so it burnt my skin. I literally had chemicals running down my
Wow.
arms and my body, and I was screaming, telling her to stop because I was burning. And she turned on the faucet, and the water just kind of rinsed me off. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, what just happened? And she called me
Yeah.
pathetic, and then she ran downstairs. And I'm
Wow.
sitting there like it soaked in this water in this bathtub, and I'm like, you know what? I have to fight for myself because nobody else is obviously going to do it.
Right.
Um, I finally had the courage to do something because I previously there was times where, like I said, my dad wasn't around. I mean, he'll come see me once in a while, or I will call
Yeah.
him when I needed to talk, if I needed to talk or whatever. Like, but
Sure.
he wasn't there like I needed him. And
Yeah.
so when I called him, I said, Dad, you need to come get me because she keeps hitting me, and I'm not happy here. Like, I want to get away. And he said, okay,
Right.
pack up your stuff. I'm going to come get you. And then so when I packed up all my stuff, like it was kind of like Christmas, right? And I was going to Disneyland or
Yeah.
something. Got all excited, packed all my stuff, and
Yeah.
then he calls and he said, I can't come get you. And so that just literally shattered my heart. And that made me feel like
Wow.
I wasn't valuable, I wasn't loved, and promises were meant to be broken, right? And so when I was in that bathtub, I like from a very young age, I had all these roots that I took with me to my adulthood. And
Yeah.
so, like I said, when I was in that bathtub and I had the courage to finally, you know what, I got to do something. I ran downstairs and I grabbed the phone and I was screaming at her, like hysterically telling her she was going to jail. I was so confident that she was going to go to jail because what just happened to me. So I called the police, and I did it with so much courage because God knows I don't know what would have happened. She literally could have grabbed me and grabbed the phone from me and hurt me.
Sure.
Anything could have
Sure.
happened, but I literally
Sure.
had so much confidence that the cops was going to back
Wow.
me up. So when I called, the cops came and all they did was refer us to the social worker. They didn't take me from the house. They didn't arrest her. So they left
Wow.
me there. And so when they walked out those
Ooh.
doors, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know
Yes.
if this lady was going to hit, if my mom was going to beat me again, or if anything could have happened, and I wouldn't know, and I would have been like, I'm
Right.
not going to reach out to the police again because they're not going to have my back. And so, and I could just imagine any other kid that's been placed in the foster care system what they go through
Yes.
of like not having a voice and not having the courage to say something to anybody.
Yes.
And so because they're let down all the time. And so that's what had happened to me. I was let down and fell through the cracks, and nobody spoke up for me for all those years. And so that's why I find it a passion of mine to speak up for others, because like
Yeah.
I'm that force, right, for them to
Yes.
be that boldness and that courage for them until they're able to have it for
Yes.
themselves. And so
Yes.
and advocate for them because nobody probably has done it for them, previously.
Right.
And so eventually I ended up going to the foster care system because I did meet the social worker, and I was placed in the foster care system, and the people I was living with was very abusive as well. There was another mentally ill child I was living with, and they would take him in the room and beat him, and he would scream on top of his lungs. And that was just re-traumatizing me all over again. I'm like,
Right.
why am I here when
Yeah.
I can just go back to my mom and I know her? I get the same. It's the same abuse, even though like I wasn't
Man.
physically being abused, but somebody else was, and I can hear the torment of that child.
Sure.
And eventually, and then they were putting padlocks in the fridge, so we weren't allowed to eat only when they fed us. And so I just didn't feel safe anywhere I went. I didn't feel safe. So
Yeah.
that just made me high risk for trafficking, right? Like that,
Yeah.
my super vulnerable for a trafficker. And so eventually I just ran away. I ran away from everything, like thinking like if I just get away from my mom, from the foster care system, I can
It'll
find
stop.
it'll stop. I'll find some happiness
Yeah.
somewhere. And I also want to put it out there, like I knew about God since I was little, but I knew of God as a punishing God, as an angry God, as
Wow.
an unforgiving God, because my mom was a Christian, but she was, like I said, had behind closed doors, she was angry. And so she always told me if I sinned, I was going to hell. If this happened, I was going to
Wow.
hell. If this happened, I was going to hell. So I literally ran the other direction from God. Like I was
Right.
angry, like, why? Okay, so if this is the case, if this is somebody that's out there supposed to be protecting us, why is all of this happening to me? And then
Yes.
if I make a mistake, I'm going to go to hell. Like, no, I
Yes.
don't want none of that. Right. And so I
Right.
ran the other direction. And so, but I also want to highlight like some areas in my life where God did show up. And now I know, because people still ask me like, well, like, how is your faith so strong with the Lord when
Yeah.
all that happened to you? And I'm
Yes.
like, well, because I'm alive today to testify.
Woo,
I'm
girl.
able to speak about it. Like,
That
you do
is,
not understand, like, where, like, there were so many situations, like, I literally screamed out his name. He showed up, right? And so
wow.
I'm just saying, like, he is so real, and I know who he is today. Like, I have my own relationship with the Lord, and he's loving, and he's
Yes.
graceful, and it's unconditional love, and he doesn't want nothing in
Yes.
return.
No.
And it's like it's not religious at all, and he
Yes.
meets me where I'm at, and he loves me,
No
so
matter what.
no matter what, like he
Yes.
leaves the 99 to find me.
Hey, listen, I
you
just
know
got chills. I just got chills.
so that's what I'm like,
Woo!
I know who he is now, but at the
Mm,
time that's what I thought God was. So, and that's why I know people that get hurt run away from God for so many years, because they're angry with him. That's the root of it.
yes.
And so that's why I want to be able to expose that too. And so like I said, I ran away from all of that, and I went to I ended up going to my dad's. I was dropped up at my dad's doorstep, and he was a drunk, and so he wasn't able to meet my needs, because I had this
Sure.
PTSD, depression, suicidal thoughts, because I was
Whew.
cutting myself. I had came with all these baggages, and my dad wasn't able to help me because he was
Right.
having his own stuff that he was going through, and so he was an ex gang member as well, so he didn't have parenting skills. So I'm just like,
Right.
no resources at all.
Mercy.
And so I tried to overdose at his house. I took the pills and alcohol, woke up the next day alive. And I'm like, well, I got to
Wow.
go to work, not work. I got to go to school and show my face, even though I was trying to like take my life away the night before. You know what I mean?
Mercy.
And I was 15 at this time. So this is what all these burdens I'm carrying. But I
At
didn't know what
15.
at 15. I didn't know how to handle it, right?
Yeah.
And so eventually I ended up meeting an older man, and I met him in front of my dad's job, and he was 27 years old. And like I said, I was 15, but I didn't know he was
Wow.
27.
Mm-hmm.
He told me he was 19, and he come up to me and said, "You're gorgeous. You're beautiful. What's your name? Can we hang out?" Like all the good stuff. I was like, whoa, like this sounds really good to my
Feeding you.
soul. Feeding me,
Yes.
like it was so undercover. It was sheep, and it was a wolf in sheep clothing, like super undercover, right? And when he was saying all that stuff to me, all I could do was grasp onto what he was doing, because nobody else was speaking out over me. And so
Wow.
words are very
Whew.
important. Words are very important, right? And so
Mercy. God.
basically I ended up going with him, and this is called the grooming process. I started to hang out with him. He started to get me loaded. I mean, I was smoking weed and doing ecstasy here and there before I met him, but this is where I started really doing it hardcore,
Okay.
because when he would get me loaded, he will take me to different hotel rooms, and he'll have me perform sexually on him, or
Mm.
he'll do anal sex with me, and stuff like it's which is rape. You know what I mean? Because I'm
Yes, of
first of all
course.
I'm
You're
15. I'm
underage.
15. I'm underage, and
Right.
second I'm loaded, so I can't consent to what's happening. But this is what he
Sure.
would do to loosen me up and have me perform. And so and this is all part of the grooming process, because this is another sign of
Mm.
manipulation, where it's like a soul tie, right?
Yes.
Like it's one thing to have a relationship verbally and talking and hanging out, but it's like another thing when you're having sex with this individual. So it's a soul tie, and you have that
Sure.
manipulation. You're connected, and so
Yes.
eventually I ended up bringing him to my dad's house, and I had to meet my dad. And so when he met my dad was drunk, and I said, "Dad, this is my new boyfriend. This is what I'm hanging out with him." He said, "Okay, you can date my daughter. Just don't take her to projects and wear protection. You can be with her." And this man's a
Wow.
grown man in your living room, but my dad was like, "Go ahead, be with my daughter." So I just took
Wow.
off with him, because I wasn't finding that happiness, that joy I was
Right.
seeking. Like the only place I could get that from is from the Lord, but I didn't know at the time. I was trying
Yes.
to find anything and anyone that could fill that hole. So I felt like being with him. He was my protector. He was my feeding me lies, right? Like he was feeding me. It was like the truth to me, but it was lies. So
Right.
he was just it was an undercover love for me. I thought that was what love looked like, but it wasn't,
Yes.
right?
Mm.
And
Man.
so eventually I ran away with him, and that's where just everything started happening. He continued to have me in the grooming process. He started to groom me on how to sell drugs. He
Wow.
he started to train me to look down on the floor where I couldn't look up at people. I had to always look down on the floor. My dignity was taken. He
Wow.
would beat me and smack me in front of everybody in the city of San Francisco downtown, and he would he would take me to he just take me to different locations, and where I started to like really lean on him more and couldn't get away because people ask me how can you just leave or escape. I'm like,
Yes.
I tried that before and he dragged me and beat me for that, and I was
Wow.
told to never go back. I couldn't go back to my family, and I wasn't going to go back to my mom's. So
Right.
where else am I going to go, so this is
Yes.
why I was so stuck. And I want people to know that, like, in situations like that, sometimes you just can't leave. You're
Yes.
so brainwashed, and no family support, like, and
What
don't trust
option do
law
you
enforcement.
have?
You don't have no
Yes.
option. Like, what, you can't trust
Mm-hmm.
law enforcement. Obviously, I can't trust anybody. So I stayed stuck with this man.
Wow.
And so this is where he ended up getting arrested, and he sent a female to me. And so this female started showing me on how to sleep with Johns. And she said, you need to make money, and this is what you're going to do. So at 16
Wow.
now, I'm having the weight of carrying a burden of taking care of me and my boyfriend that's locked up. So I needed to pay for the bills. So I was told I needed to sleep with John. And
Wow.
so I had to sleep with these men. And so literally I'm detaching every time I'm sleeping with these
Woo.
men. And the woman was taking the money, and I wasn't getting any of that money. I
Mm.
had to detach every time. There was
Yes.
times that I robbed Johns and I put knives to their neck and robbed them because I was so desperate and I didn't want to sleep with anybody.
Wow.
And so,
Yes.
but when I ended up escaping the situation and hopped in a taxi, the money I stole from the man was fake money. And I
Oh,
remember I started screaming and crying, like, I now got to go back out there again. And what got me was like, what if I really slept with him and this was fake money? Like,
the
those thoughts.
despair.
Yeah. So I was crying, and I was in the backseat of this man's car. I mean, his taxi. And the guy looked at me. He said, I don't know if God's telling me to pray for you. Can I pray for you? And
Wow.
I looked at him so angry. I said, God wants you to pray for me? He said, yeah. And I'm like, why? And he's all, because I have a feeling that you need to be prayed for. Can I pray with you?
Oh
And
my gosh.
I said, okay. And it's like, I was already desperate. And I said, okay, pray for me. But I was really
Yes.
angry. But now I know that was just God telling me, I'm here with you, daughter. Like, even
Wow.
though all of
Woo.
this is happening, like, I'm with you
Oh my
regardless, and you're gonna make
gosh.
it out of it. You know what I mean?
Woo.
And so there was other situations where he ended up getting out, and she ended up leaving. So then he started to traffic me because he told me, well, if you did it for her, you could do
You
it for
can do it for
me.
me.
Show much
Mercy,
how much
God.
you love me. And they were both from the same gang, so they were tag teaming it. But I was super naive. I was super broken. My mindset was just off. Like, I was not thinking clearly. I didn't have any resources. I didn't have any role models or
Anything.
mentors. And so basically, he started selling me again to these multiple shacks and multiple cars. Um, there was times that I was raped and not paid and thrown out of a car, and literally
Wow.
this man that raped and took and didn't pay me could have killed me. He was 10 times, like, he was super. I want to say he was like 6 feet tall, and I was
Wow.
tiny. He was super big, and I was tiny, and anything could have happened. Like, he could have killed me, and I would have been missing, and nothing would, or I would have disappeared, and nobody went looking for me. Right.
Wow.
So I'm blessed today that I was able to make it out of those situations alive.
Yes.
And so
Only God.
yes, only it was only him that protected
Oof.
me. Like, there was other situations where I was under my third trafficker, and he kidnapped me. And because what happened was he would give me a large amount of dope to sell for him.
Mm-hmm.
So before I met my third trafficker, I was in and out of correctional facilities. I went to Valley State Prison, in and out, because this was my lifestyle, right?
Sure.
My first trafficker got deported, so I ended up connecting with other people because that was my street family. And so
Mm.
and I had multiple identities. My name was Sabrina, my name was Beth, my name was Lizette, my name was
Wow.
Jacqueline. I had so many different identities because I didn't know who I was, right? I didn't know that I was the daughter of the Most High. You couldn't tell
Mm.
me that you are if somebody came up to me and said, you are the daughter of the Most High and God has big plans for you, like, one day you're going to be walking the stage getting your bachelor's, I'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, you need to get
Right.
away from me. Because
Wow.
for so long I thought I was always going to be a child prostitute. I was
Yeah.
going to be a prostitute. I was going to be an addict. I was going to be a criminal. Like, that's all that I was going to be.
Mm.
But I knew, like, now I know that God has major plans for me, and that's not who I was.
Yes.
Right? That's not who I really
Yes.
am. And
Yes.
So when I met my third trafficker, he would give me all these drugs to sell for him. And so I finally thought I had arrived because he would give me up to a half a pound, a quarter pound, a half a pound to sell for him. I'm like, that's a lot of money. I don't have to sleep with Johns to do this. Like, this is amazing. Like, I thought I had
got out.
arrived.
Yeah.
I got out, right? And
Whew.
so, but then it was another form of trafficking because it was labor trafficking because I was always in debt, right? I was always in debt with this man, always giving him, I had short money. I didn't have all the money because I was always like either smoking my own supply or being a female drug dealer, you're getting robbed left and right. And so, or I would get arrested with his dope, do the time and get out because I didn't snitch. I would think we were squashed, but he ended up saying, no, you owe me. So I was always having this quota to make and I didn't have enough money to pay it. And so when I would get in his car, right, and give him the money I owed him, he'll give me more dope to sell, but he will make me he will make me perform too on him. I will have to give him oral sex. So I experienced labor trafficking with this man and sex trafficking
At the same time, yeah.
at the same time. And so there was times, like I said, where he kidnapped me because I had owed him $1,000, and he told me, he said, I'm taking you to 2 places to cash these fake checks, and if you don't cash them in those 2 places, he's, I'm gonna take you to the Ostro. You're gonna make my money, and then I'm gonna break your legs. He had a hitman right next to him to break my legs afterwards.
Wow.
And so I remember when I got in the car and he locked the doors, I was able to get out. And so he took me to these 2 places. And during that time, it was hard to cash fake checks on the mission in the city. So I remember going to one place, they denied me. And then I walked to the second place, and I remember crying out to God. And I said, I don't know if you're really there and if you can hear me. I was like, but I really need you to help me get out of this situation. I really need some type of miracle, some hope, because I want my legs. Like, I want to be able to make it out of here with my legs.
Wow.
And so I went to that second place, and they cashed my check. And I'm not saying don't commit a crime. I'm not saying but I'm just saying, that's where I say God's grace shows up for you, right?
No matter where
no
you
matter
are.
where I'm at, His grace shows up for me.
Thank
so I
you,
was
God.
able to cash that check, and I was able to go pay my trafficker what I owed him. And of course, I still had to give him sexual favors, and I still had to get more dope. He still made me take dope to go sell for him, even though I didn't want to. I had to because that was what I was. It was that lifestyle. That was my mindset. I had no choice, right? And so, but I was able to get out of that situation with my legs and alive. And so that's what I'm saying. God shows up wherever you're at. It doesn't matter like how deep in the darkest pits you are at. He shows up regardless. You just got to call unto him. It said that in Psalms 91, like when he hears the brokenhearted. You know, so I'm telling you, he's there. And so, I bet, like I said, I was just in and out of correctional facilities. And then eventually I got arrested at 26 for the very last time under my third trafficker. And I had a baby boy. I just gave birth to him. He was 3 months old. And I couldn't stop using throughout my whole pregnancy. I couldn't because I didn't love myself. So how can I love this baby? You know? And so, but God used my baby to wake me up. I needed to wake up because there was no, like, if it wasn't for Jacob, my son, I would have kept doing what I was doing because I couldn't love myself. I couldn't see myself from a different pair of lens. I couldn't see myself from God's lens, right? I only see myself as like, this is what I was going to be for the rest of my life. Yes. And so, eventually when I got arrested for that last time, I told the cops who I was working for because I had no choice. It was either tell the cops who I was working for and be able to go see my son before they take me away, or don't snitch and do time again for this man. But I decided, you know what? No more. I don't want to keep dragging my son in his lifestyle. So I had left him at a dope house, right? And the cops told me if I work with them, they'll take me to go see him before they take me to jail. Yeah. So I told the cops what I was doing and who I was selling drugs for. And wow. And they said, okay. And they took me straight to jail. They didn't take me to go see my son. Wow. But you know what? I look at it like, okay, God still used everything for my good and his glory, right? So he just used that whole situation to save me, because I did get 5 years. I ended up getting 5 years, but I ended up getting clean from all of that. And I ended up getting this fire and this motivation to do something different. And this is where I needed to sit my butt down to heal, right? So God could do some major work inside of me. And so my son, he ended up going to a safe place. And I ended up doing my time between 2 different counties. And when I came to Sonoma County, this is where I did a lot of my work. I learned about my family's past. I learned about addiction, incarceration, all that, like trauma, PTSD, all that. Wow. I learned when I got out. When I was in the jail behind bars, I ended up getting my GED. So yes, and I ended up completing Starting Point, which is a rehab inside the jail. And then I ended up getting out and went to women's recovery services. And that's where I learned about being a victim of trafficking. There was no such thing as a child prostitute. And so that's why I learned that I can use my voice to help others, and it inspired me to go back to school and go to college. I'd never been to college before, but I'm like, you know what? I want to go to college to be a counselor, to help others. And so that just started this whole trajectory of me going to school. You know what I mean? And so I started going to school, got my AA in 2019, became a leader of the community. I transferred to Sonoma State. Now I'm walking the stage and getting my bachelor's next Sunday.
Hey.
And then I'm not stopping there. I'm going to go and get my master's. So, excuse me. I'm going to go and get my master's in the fall. And I'm getting my master's in social justice, human rights. Wow. And so I'm just really excited on what God's doing. And then I connected with another survivor. She's my partner. Her name's Lisa McQuaid. She's like my best friend, my road dog. And we're both building this nonprofit called Redemption House of the Bay Area. And we're working towards opening up a safe house here in Sonoma County to help other women like going through this overcome it. They can overcome it too. They're not damaged goods. They're not going to fall through the cracks anymore. No. Like, let's get them out of that and let's rehabilitate them, establish them, give them their identity that God's gave them since birth, that the enemy robbed, right? Like, and bring them back to life so they can continue to pass that to the next person and start that domino effect. You know what I mean? And so that's what we're trying to do here in Sonoma County, and then we're going to expand. And I'm just claiming that right now. We're going to expand.
In the name of Jesus.
Amen.
Oh my gosh. Elizabeth, I just need to say thank you so much for sharing your story. Marcy is spot on. You are a child of God. He rescued you because you asked him to. He was there the whole time. You were brought back to life. You are such an inspiration, Elizabeth. Oh my gosh. And I know that is just a snippet of the story, but God has brought you and redeemed you. And now as a result, because he allowed you to overcome, in him, you are helping others overcome. Man, God is amazing. Elizabeth, tell me, the first time that you shared this story, I mean, you got out of prison, you set your life on track. You shared with me that, you didn't share that here, but I'm going to share it. You mentioned that you got your little boy back after how many years? Tell us.
9 years. I finally got him back in December full time after 9 years of fighting for him. And being told I was never going to get him back.
Woo! Look at God.
For many years, people told me that you're not going to be able to get him back. And when I went to court for my son, they threw my case out and said, we don't rehabilitate, we don't restore families here. Like, no. And so they threw my case out. And I literally left that courtroom broken. But I said, you know what? No, God has the final say. I'm going to get my son back. And that's because he had other women come into my life, speaking life over me, telling me, you are going to get your son back on his time, and you just wait and see. And so that's why I always encourage everybody to speak life to others when you see them going down. Like, you see them feeling down and out, like whatever the situation, just continue to speak life to them, because they're going to hold on to that seed you're speaking over that person. So, it's important. And I'm married too. My husband has 4 kids. I have my son, so we have 5.
Hey, look at you. God has just restored you and given you a family. So the first time that you publicly shared your story, what was that experience like, and what motivated you to do that?
So when I first shared, it was very scary for me, because I felt like that people were going to judge. I felt, even though I knew I wasn't a child prostitute, I was a trafficking victim, an overcomer, I still had all those roots that I was working on letting go. So I was very afraid. Let me just say that. But I knew that I needed to start somewhere. And I remember people telling me, you need to start somewhere. So that's what gave me the courage to just share, because I need to start somewhere, right? Like, I need to just speak it out, and then hopefully somebody receives something for what I'm saying. So it was scary at first. And then I just continued to show up. I continued to speak throughout the years. So whenever I'm asked to speak, I just show up and do it, because I know it's all preparation to where God's taking me. So, I mean, if you literally, like, if I would have got out of recovery home and went straight on the stage, I would have freaked out. But then, so if I would get out of the home and then I speak in small groups, I speak like to one person, like everything I've been doing has been bring me up to
gradual.
yeah, when I get on the stage
Yes.
with like hundreds of people there, I'm gonna be okay with that because I got practice.
Yes, you've gotten practice. And you know what?
Yeah,
There's power every time that you release it,
yes,
right? Every time that you speak, those roots that you talk about lose power, right?
yes,
Because they no longer can have a hold on you. They stop being roots, right? They start to
yeah,
become uprooted, so to speak.
yes, yes.
And
And
so
I'm
that
exposing.
yes, so that
Yes.
new roots can begin to settle. Now, I know you shared a little bit about what you've been inspired to do, but tell us a little more about what have you been inspired to do as a result of your story.
So my inspiration, like Redemption House is one of the goals, right? But my like big motivation, big goal is to be a motivational speaker, and that's what I'm doing now. But
Yes.
I like to travel and go speak at different nonprofits, different facilities, like wherever God takes me, to just go and
Yes.
speak and tell them what He's done for me, right? And to give hope to
Mm.
others. And so that's like what my passion is to bring hope, because a lot of people think it's impossible for they have family that are still out there on drugs or stuck in the streets or doing
Yes.
time in prison. You know,
Yes.
that they feel like there's no hope, but that's not true. Like if God can redeem me and my story and turn it around, like there's hope for others as well. And I want to be able to expose those lies and show and give people truth and
Yes.
hope that God can turn around anything. And it might take some time, but that's okay. You know,
Yes.
like how many it took Noah 40 years to build the ark. Like come on,
Right.
so it's gonna take some years, but that's okay. You learn and you grow
You
during those years
learn
we're
and you
waiting.
grow.
Yeah,
Absolutely. We I always forget this part, but for those of you who are tuning in, if you have a question for Elizabeth, now is the time. I forgot to say that earlier, but you can ask any question that you may have for her. Now is the time. But so Elizabeth, you are going to be graduating next
yeah.
Sunday with your bachelor's in tell me what you're graduating with.
Sociology.
Hey, and then so from there, so are you do you currently work in what do you currently do?
So right now I'm a drug and alcohol counselor at Athena House, and so I've been here
Mm,
for almost 2.5 years, and so that's what I've been doing the last couple of years is STD counselor, meeting with clients and helping them have treatment goals and stuff like that, and that was my goal when I was in rehab. Like I wanted to be a counselor, because
yeah.
those women when I was in treatment helped and saved my life, so I wanted to give back.
Yes.
And so this is where I'm at now. But like I said, I have long term goals, of
Yes.
like running or being a founder of Redemption House in the Bay Area, and then speaking, like going and around the world and
Yes.
speaking my truth and sharing to people like what God can do.
Yes, that you are an overcomer, that
Yes,
he can redeem you, that he is with you no matter where you are, and
yes,
that you can thrive. You don't just have to survive.
yes.
Girl, well, listen, I am so grateful to you for the courage to share your story. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that God is going to do amazing things. I think someone
Yes.
mentioned that earlier. Said, God is going to do amazing things through you. And we believe that. There is a question. She says, how do you help someone that doesn't want help but is stuck in that hole?
So that's a hard one. And so what you can do is continue to pray for that individual and let them know
Mm,
that the door is open, that you're always there for them when they're ready. It's kind of like meeting them where they're at, right? And a
yeah.
lot of God's children, like God's probably in heaven right now, like, and people are on drugs or in the streets, and He's probably like, I'm waiting for you to come to me, but you're still there, so I'm just gonna continue to be here and wait for you, right? So we kind of
Yes.
like have to have that mindset of what God has, right? And so basically,
Yes.
that His mindset is to just wait and pray for Him, for whoever's out there, pray for that person, wait for them, and love on them. So when they do come to you, just love on them and praise that they're back, right? But it's kind of like you just gotta
Yes.
wait on it. And I know it sucks, it's hard, but that's just what it is. And then you have resources for them when they're ready.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a question for you. So, when I know one of your goals is to bring continual awareness to human trafficking, as somebody who is just walking around and living my life, is there anything that signs, things that we could be aware of to pay attention to in order to maybe support or help someone else that might be going through through that situation? Is there anything that we could do for someone else?
Well, so basically, I would encourage everybody to, even though like you've heard some stuff about trafficking today, like it's still always important to do webinars, to do more training around it, so then you have more notes or you have more
Yes.
education,
Information.
more
Sure.
information to what to look out for. But if you, and it's always good to have the resources in your local community to see what specializes in trafficking. Like there's in Sonoma County, there's Verity, which is the Rape Crisis Trauma Center, and they help with trafficking victims. And then we have our
Mm-hmm.
local law enforcement. And not all law enforcement is trained around this, but there's some good ones out there. But you still want to be able to have that connection with law enforcement
Okay.
if it's needed, right?
Yeah.
But connect with the local organization that specializes in trafficking. Have those resources ready. So if you are like walking down the street and you see something like that's not, it seems like there's that gut feeling something's going
Something's
on.
off. Yeah.
Yeah, usually you can tell if the girl's like looking down on the floor and she's with the man hovering over her. That's a huge red flag.
Yeah.
If she's wearing clothes that are showing a lot of her private parts, that's a red flag
sign
as well. Yeah. Or if you notice that she has like scabs, if she's on the streets and she has scabs all over her face or her arms.
Wow.
Usually people that are homeless and that are on drugs end up being trafficked because they want to be able to get some drugs in exchange.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So it's a cycle. Yeah.
It's a cycle. So that's why people that's been incarcerated or homeless or on drugs eventually experience trafficking at some point in their life. And so that's why that's a red flag too, they might be experiencing that.
Yes.
And so but you just have to just have some resources and that you
Sure.
remember of that you can offer if they're by themselves. If they're with the trafficker or with some guy or somebody that looks kind of intimidating with them, they're not by themselves. I will be very careful about that, because if you try to approach that victim and their trafficker's right there, when you leave, they'll get hurt basically. Their trafficker will take it out on them. So you don't want to put them in you don't want to put them in danger. So you just, when you see stuff like that, you just need to call your local law enforcement.
Wow, that's good to know, right? Because I think it's so natural in my mind to be like, okay, is there something that I can do? Maybe I can intervene. But you're absolutely right? Our job is to be able to know what the resources are in our community, so that if we see something, we can alert those resources and not intervene thinking that we can save someone when in reality it can cause more harm than good.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oof. Well, listen, girl, everybody who's tuning in, I need you to show some love to Elizabeth for sharing her powerful story of courage and hope. And I can't wait, honestly, like I'm now a committed follower of yours. So I am just wanting to continue to see how God is going to use you. So follow her on Instagram. You see her handle there, and just continue to pray for her journey. We'll be praying for you, girl, as you continue to move and as God continues to open up a territory, new territory and new opportunity. Thank you so much, girl. I'm going to send you backstage. Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Bye. Listen, I don't know about you, but God is just so amazing. Yes, so inspiring. She has inspired me to continue to walk in God's path for my life, because his ways are higher, his dreams are bigger. So thank you so much, Elizabeth, again. Guys, don't forget to support by sharing and by sharing this story with others. Yes, thank you, Elizabeth. Next week, we're going to have Rachel Keel sharing her story of recovery from a stroke. And so I'm so excited to get to sit down with her. And again, wanted to remind you that the end of What's Your Story Season 1 is going to be May 30th, and Season 2 will be coming. So tune in for the dates for that. And as always, if you want to support, you can share. You can subscribe on YouTube, and you can actually donate to What's Your Story to continue this platform and via Cash App at What's Your Story Live. With that being said, guys, it's the end of another amazing episode, and I want you to remember that your purpose is found in knowing, owning, and sharing your story. So the question is, are you ready to share yours?